Hello there, back on the river. And this time I'm using my 8-foot rod. This one is a Gray's GRXi 8-foot, and it's rated for lines of 3 or 4. And marrying up with that, I've got a Hardy Ultralite 2000 reel. I'm not sure what the line is. I think it might be a Cortland weight 4 perhaps. 4-pound nylon leading down to a Mayfly pattern because it's Mayfly season. The pool behind me never produces much, but in Mayfly season that could be different. So let's give it a go. Well, this one isn't a monster, but it's a start. It's a beauty of the barbless hooks as well, they just come straight out. Such a strange pool, this one. You very rarely see anything rising. And if anything does rise, it's so small that most people wouldn't even bother fishing for it. You know, as you've seen, that fish was probably 6 inches long maybe, and that's about all you ever catch out of here. And yet it's got quite a deep runner along the back, it's got an overhanging tree, it's got a nice current that brings food down. The surface is absolutely lifting with midges. It's got everything going for it. It's even got hiding places. There's big flat stones on the far side that go into the water, you know. I just don't know what it is, but this pool just never produces. I've fished it for 30 odd years, and I think the biggest fish I've ever had out of it was about a pound in weight. Everything else has been up to half a pound. It's a strange one, but one of these days I'm going to pull a monster out. Well, I had another one from the bottom end of that pool, but unfortunately the grass is so high that I couldn't set the camera up when I was fishing. The tripod is probably only about 2 foot high, and presently the grass in places is about 4 foot high on the sides of the river. You didn't miss much though, because the fish was probably about half the size of the first one, maybe about 3 inches or so. It wasn't exactly a monster. Do you know, I think I've come at a bit of a funny time of the day. It's about 4, maybe it's 4:30 in the afternoon. We'll have had a real good hatch from kind of midday through till maybe 2 o'clock or so. And sometimes when the mayflies on, they can gorge themselves, you know, at dinner time, or should I say at lunchtime onwards, and then they might just lie up in the current for 3, 4, maybe even 5 hours, until the mayfly that have come out earlier in the day start to die, and they start to land back on the water, and then they get back on the feed. So I think I might be in between times, because there's hardly anything rising on any of the pools that I've tried so far. For instance, there's nothing rising behind me. Top of the water is absolutely covered in midges. There's mayflies landing in it all the time. There's bound to be fish in that little runner, although it isn't very deep. It's maybe 2 feet, 2.5 feet deep. There's always fish in there, but I just don't know where they are. Could be that they've gorged themselves. Now that is the stuff that I treat all of my dry flies with, gink. And this particular bottle is probably 20, 25 years old. It's in hell of an age, but it still works. Just put some between your thumb and your forefinger. Let it turn to a liquid if it's a cold day. Today I've got no problems because it's already a liquid, and then you just rub it into the fly. Particularly good with muddlers, which you would use in reservoirs and so on. What I would do in that situation is I would put gink on the front, and I'd put something called zinc, which is X-I-N-K, on the back end of the muddler. So you've got a big fly where the front end floats and the back end sinks. So it sits like that in the water, and as soon as you pull it, bloop, 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 and the fish just absolutely hammer it. If you put gink which is the floating agent on the whole of the muddler, and start bringing it in. It just skims along the top and the fish aren't as interested. So that's a little bit of a secret that I'm sharing with you. If you've got muddlers, float the front end and sink the back end. If you haven't got any zinc, which is XINK, from the same manufacturers, just spit on the back end of your muddler and that'll do the same job. Spit on the back end and put floatant on the front end. Now the reason I always fish barbless is it's a lot easier to take the hook out of the fish's mouth, and well, other than dragging it out of the river by its lips, it doesn't actually hurt it, doesn't leave it with any lasting damage, and that's very important. I think that must have been my chance. Then it went for it and I missed it. Let's just say it was a monster. Possibly one of the biggest fish in the river. Now this one's a bit of a bummer because I can clearly see where somebody has come along this bankside and then gone down into the water to fish this pool, which of course they shouldn't have done because this is a private stretch. But they have. I just hope they haven't caught the Lord Trout that usually lives in here, or if they have caught him, that they've put him back. And there's actually a few fish rising in here, so I think this is looking good. And obviously I'm a professional, so I'm not going to go in the water. No, actually that's a bit cruel. A lot of people do go in the water because it's a lot easier for them to cast, but I don't like to even dip my toe in the water if I can help it. Especially on a stretch like this, because sometimes the fish can be quite close in. And if you go into the water, you simply scare them further away, so you end up having to cast further. With this pool, really, as long as you can cast, I don't know, 10 yards maybe, when the back cast isn't good, but as long as you can cast 10 yards, you should be able to catch fish. And when the wind is coming up the river, it makes it a lot easier because, just out of shot up there, maybe just in shot, oh no, that's it's not in shot, but just beyond my rod tip there's a big branch that comes down into the water, and the fish tend to be just beyond there and up a little bit, so I can see why people who are poaching try to come down here and then cast up, but they don't have to. If you can cast halfway competently, you don't need to go in the water on a little river like this. And I would just like to preface this with, if I don't catch anything, it's because of climate change. It's not because I'm no good at casting. Now I've come down here and I've sat about 5 minutes before I've even started to cast. And that is important because no matter how carefully you approach the river, you will always disturb some fish. And if you just sit and watch what's going on for 5 minutes, all those fish will go back to where they had originally been. And then you can hopefully catch them. I don't believe it. I was just about to bring the fly in, and then a little one grabbed it as I was dragging it along the top. And that's quite a common thing to happen when you're using mayflies. And a tiny little brownie, but it's a Very bonny fella. That's not the one we're after. That one's a bit better. Yeah, there we go. Nice little brownie, probably about half a pound in weight. Just slip them back and then all's right with the world. Well, that was a bit strange. It was just some random young lad talking to himself. Turned up at the side of the river. I asked him if he was alright, and I didn't really get a response. So I've moved down to the next pool. I assume he's alright. He looked alright. But we've got a load of pikeys, travellers, on the other side of the river, and possibly he's one of the pikeys. Travellers. And I've just heard a really good fish rise in the pool behind me. So pikeys or no pikeys, I'm going to go for it. Sure, holy shite, would you look at the size of these fellas? That's a good fish. It's a lovely cast as well. As soon as I dropped it next to those obstructions over there, I thought, ooh, that looks fishy. Oh, this kingfisher just gone past as well. There we go. Ooh, a big fish in a very small net. Let's get him out. Looks like a stocky. Ooh, bloody hell. But he's well rested. Oh, God damn. Absolutely swallowed that fly as well. That's what these fellas are for. Never be without these. Yeah, straight out. And there we go. I wouldn't say it's exactly a Lord Trout, but he's certainly a big lad. And I'll give him a kiss. Very nice. Yes. There you go, son. He's gone back with his mates. And I've got a fishy taste in my mouth. That was one of those casts where I just dropped it in amongst a load of obstructions and it started to float down. I just thought, yes, it's got to produce a fish. Bloop, straight away. Right, I'm going to give the top end of the pool a go now because I have seen 2 or 3 fish rising up there. Couldn't see what they were rising for, but I'm sure if I drop a mayfly pattern on, they might have a go at it. Well, that didn't take long. There you go. God damn, another one that swallowed the hook. These are getting plenty of use today. That's a very lean fish. It's obviously a stocky. It's got a full tail on it, but it needs feeding up. So let's put him back. There you go, son. Fill yourself up on mayflies. I'll see you in the back end of the year when you're this big. Well, that didn't take long. I swear when the mayfly are on, it's so easy. There you go. Another little lad from the fast water. Really, when the mayfly are hatching, and that is a mayfly, just in case anybody's not aware. That one presented itself just in time. Poor buggers, they only live one day in the adult form. They live 2 or 3 years in the larval form, which lives in the muck in the bottom of the river. And then for, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks, they'll come up in late May, early July up here, and they'll go berserk, they'll fly around, they'll mate, they'll lay all their eggs, and then they'll die. So they'll live one day as an adult, and when they come out of that larval stage, they shed the mouth parts, so that even if they wanted to live more than a day, they couldn't, because they couldn't eat. And on a night, all those spent adult bodies land back in the river, and they float down, and they feed the fish. Right, I think that is it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. If you want more fishing videos, check out the playlist. I think I've got one on the 1000 Yard Stare channel called Outdoor Hobbies or something like that, and it's got a few fishing videos in. I am intended to upload more, and hopefully the next one will be the evening rise. But I can almost hear my wife calling from across the field, "Your tea's ready," and I'm dying for some chili. See you in the next video. Okay, welcome back. Here we are down back at the river, hopefully for the evening rise. It's probably about 8:15 at night, and looking at the sky, it's very overcast. We've probably got maybe another hour and a quarter's worth of light left. Now the camera will work in, partial darkness, but I won't, because quite a lot of this river down here doesn't have a very good backcast, so I kind of need to see what I'm doing. This might be a short session, but hopefully it produces some good fish. Or some fish. Well, that didn't take long. Oh, this is an absolutely beautiful little fish. Yep, barbless hook comes straight out. And if you'll stay still, feast your eyes on that lad. The spots on there, absolutely beautiful. Cracking little wild brownie. Well, that's a good start. And you know, I'd rather catch one little wild fish like that than 10 stocked fish 2 or 3 times the size. It just looks beautiful when you're taking it out of the water. Colours are just so nice. Another 5 minutes has passed and there's absolutely nothing happening. I thought the water would be boiling with fish because I came up here the other night and it wasn't as warm as this, and the water was just jumping. There was fish absolutely everywhere. Some of them looked a pretty decent size as well. I think they've just totally stuffed themselves and sickened themselves of the mayfly. So they're just lying up, waiting for that stuff to digest. I think I maybe just need to hit them on a cold day. Well, that was a bit of a bummer. I think I must have seen 3 fish rise maybe on my entire way down the river. And the one I caught wasn't even one of the ones that I saw rising. Basically there was no evening rise. It was terrible. I think what I can deduce from that is that you know, the blame lies squarely upon humankind, and it's obviously man-made climate change that's caused there not to be an evening rise. Or it could be the monkeypox, or it could be the COVIDs. You know, the reason I only caught 1 fish is not because of my fishing skill or lack thereof. It's some external factor, and I'm sure science will back me up. If you'd like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.